Welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation. I am Kwame Thomas, and tonight we'll be tackling a significant legal battle unfolding in Jamaica. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is taking the Integrity Commission to court, challenging key anti-corruption laws. Joining me to unpack the implications of this unprecedented move is social and political commentator Germaine Barrett. Stay tuned to this very insightful episode of The Conversation. Welcome to The Conversation, Germaine. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kwame. I'm still afloat and still alive.
Still afloat and still alive.
Absolutely.
That's good to hear. But with what has been happening, we are seeing where Prime Minister Andrew Holness wants to strike down provisions of the Integrity Commission Act, Section 145 of the Corruption Prevention Act. What does this legal maneuver means for our fight, Jamaica's fight against corruption?
It's the matter of corruption, Kwame, and listeners, viewers. It's a question of both reality and perception. And I'm concerned that the reality of this is not what a lot of persons are concerned about right now. Really and truly, it's a perception. The perception that this administration has unfortunately found itself in quite a precarious position. The public at large is concerned at the allegations. Many persons are fomenting conclusions at this stage that are adverse to the interests of the Prime Minister and his reputation. And so here we have the Prime Minister, by way of a judicial review, challenging the legitimacy, the constitutionality even of these provisions, the ones you've just listed. And word on the street, and I survey people's perception. The sense is that people are saying, well, this is an indication that the Prime Minister is out to destroy the integrity institutions, the accountability mechanism that exists within the country. So my personal view, though, is I don't know that we are at that point in others. I don't think we have enough evidence to prove that the moves by the Prime Minister are in keeping with that particular conclusion.
But do we have sufficient evidence to say that the reverse is true as well?
No, we don't. And one of the things that I find, particularly for persons who are caught up in the political discourse, in the public discourse, is that we are oftentimes inclined to rush to conclusions when the evidence is inadequate, right? It's not to say that as a citizen we ought not to be concerned about what is happening and really, proactively engaging the system. But I think when we arrive at such firm conclusions, I consider it troubling. And so it is also troubling that the Prime Minister, given the significant position that he occupies within the country, yes, the chief legislature, yes, the man who, by virtue of an edict, can really fashion legislation,
yes,
the way he thinks it best, that he didn't take advantage of that particular privilege and prerogative of his, and is only now finding it necessary to kind of question the constitutionality of these provisions. Again, it does not, in my estimation, look good.
So what you're saying is that it's very unusual and it's significant that a sitting Prime Minister would seek to challenge a law that's designed to keep public officials accountable. That's one. But the two now, what does this say for his trust in what we can now call his system, the system that he stands at the helm of?
Well, I've heard the Prime Minister oftentimes criticize and throw negative assessments at his system. For example, you've heard him mention oftentimes that the procurement system of government, his system, is slow and painstaking and stalling development. So I think while he's the Prime Minister, he also stands at the head of a bureaucracy, a political bureaucracy that is not exactly his design. Jamaica's bureaucracy, Jamaica's legislative architecture has been fashioned over many, many years. And to say that, well, it's his system, it's yours, so you have no business criticizing it, I don't think that is a reasonable position to take. What I think, though, is that while he criticizes, you and I, Kwame, we can criticize, yes, because we have very limited powers to change the system. The Prime Minister, on the other hand, he has enormous powers and can actually do significant change as he sees fit.
So his criticisms then should be coming from a place where these are the inadequacies and we're going to change them. Whereas you and I, we can literally just criticize because it exists to be criticized by us, because we can't barely change it.
Precisely.
But then I'm looking at the implications, though. What does this mean for the Integrity Commission as far as if he wins? You know, how could this reshape their ability to probe future allegations?
Boy, I tell you, this would do severe damage to the Integrity Commission if the Prime Minister were to win on the 30 submissions that he has made to the judiciary with respect to the attempt for a judicial review. It would do significant damage. And I think it would be certainly harmful to the country at large because, let's be real, the Integrity Commission has an important role to play in, again, maintaining the accountability of our political leaders and ensuring that, things are kept good and proper. And so if it is that institution is undermined, if public perception and public trust in the Integrity Commission is diminished, then it gives way for nefarious actors within the political arena to say, well, I'm going to act corruptly. I'm going to act with ill intent because there is nothing there to hold me account, because the mechanism that's there holding me accountable is weakened. Yeah. So I really do hope that what I want is for justice to prevail, is for the outcome to be that which is in the best interest of the truth. But I'm concerned that if that is an outcome that leads to the rulings going ultimately against the Integrity Commission, I think that is likely to be damaging to its perception.
All right.
To the perception of the Integrity Commission, that is.
All right. So we go to our first break. You're watching The Conversation, where I'm here with social and political commentator Germaine Barrett. Continue to stay with us. Welcome back to The Conversation. Just before we went to the break, Germaine, we started looking at what kind of precedents would this set. But are we saying no, based on what you have just spoken of, this presents a potential setback in terms of Jamaica's anti-corruption efforts? That's what you're saying, correct?
Yes, certainly in the short term, until confidence is rebuilt. And, it's not something to be overly, I would contend, worried about. And let me tell you why. It is better to know that this whole process, the judicial review and the Prime Minister's attempt to rescue his reputation, results in the systems being calibrated such that we can, in the long term, be confident in the outcomes of be it the Integrity Commission's findings or whatever other accountable mechanisms that we have in this country. So there is going to be a short-term adverse impact to perceptions of the capacity, the integrity of the Integrity Commission. But I think at least the long-term benefit is going to be that we will have an integrity architecture in this country that we can be more confident in. It's likely to lead, if the Prime Minister's submissions are upheld, it's going to lead to amendments in the legislation governing the Integrity Commission. And I think it would certainly strengthen it, I would contend, over time.
All right, so I see where you're saying over time. But now, tell me about the political institutions that we do have. Based on this challenge that the Prime Minister has mounted, do you think that this serves to erode public trust for political institutions now?
It does, on one hand. It does weaken the sense of trust that people have of political institutions. I mean, all the data points are indicating that. The number of Jamaicans who go to vote at the general elections or the local government elections is appallingly low. We saw in the Blue Dot polls most recently, that the second most significant concern in the minds of most Jamaicans is that of corruption. Yes, I would contend it's a perception that is greater than the reality. I don't think we are as corrupt in Jamaica as people make us out to be, but again, perception is reality. So if people believe that, then it's going to lead to them voting or not voting. And I think the perception as well is that both political parties are struggling with matters relating to integrity and corruption.
So what signals, though, primarily, what kind of signal do you think that the Prime Minister is sending when he does that? Because we started out by saying that he's challenging one of his own institutions. You know, what kind of signal is he sending? Rather?
You know, I try to peer into the mind of the Prime Minister, and I don't know if my calculations are exactly accurate. What I can anticipate is that the Prime Minister, faced with the fury of the public, of the opposition, of civil society, really pressing hard against him, he may also be considering that he has a responsibility to defend, as all citizens do, his integrity. But then there's also a political cost. And the political cost we're recognizing now is that Jamaicans are seeing by and large that his attempts to push back against the Integrity Commission, to push back against the naysayers and the political detractors, is reflective of a man who is cornered. And he's trying now to salvage his reputation and himself. So we do recall though, Kwame, several months ago in the Parliament when Edward Warmington and many others who are members of the Integrity Commission Review Committee, when they were really opining strong views about the Integrity Commission needing to be effectively dismantled, weakened, and the Prime Minister stood and he basically silenced his side and he said, listen, the Integrity Commission has an important role. Let us not kill it. Let us not destroy it. Yes, and I applauded him when he did that. We're seeing seemingly a somewhat different stance. A Prime Minister who feels that he himself is attacked and he has now to go on the offensive.
So let's be clear though, he's not saying that it's not a case whereby he has flip-flopped. He's not saying that it should not be there, but he's just saying that what they have done, how they have done what they have done is incorrect, so he's challenging that position. Is that what we're saying?
And it's hard for people to appreciate the nuance because a lot of persons see in the two courses of action that I've just described an inconsistency. A Prime Minister who is standing in defense of the Integrity Commission on one hand, and on the other hand, he's now the chief warrior against the Integrity Commission. It could very well be that the Prime Minister believes that an Integrity Commission is important. I don't see a dissonance in that view with respect to the two positions.
Yes.
So it could be that he believes that the Integrity Commission is of value. I certainly believe that it's of value. But that doesn't mean that a critique of its current structure, legislative arrangements, that means that you're trying to destroy the Integrity Commission. I would also want for listeners, viewers, to be mindful of what exactly is being prescribed by the Prime Minister and to what extent do these weaken the Integrity Commission. And I'm not sure that it does, really.
So when on the last conversation that we had, some persons might have gone as far as to say that you have flip-flopped in your statement to say whether or not the Prime Minister should have resigned. You might want to add some clarity to that statement, but before you do so, though, what I want to find out, low voter turnout has been an issue for us perennially. Now, do you think that, or to the extent that you think that the JLP's chances have been slimmed down now, do you think that it's in his best interest to contest the next general election, hoping to hold the title of Prime Minister once more?
To your last question first, should the Prime Minister hold on and fight the next general elections? I maintain that I don't know that is the best choice right now. I think the Prime Minister is really faced with a deluge of criticism and harsh perceptions by public and civil society and the opposition. I think it's going to impact his governance of the country in as much as a positive perception of the Prime Minister and the political leaders of the country is important in having the citizens follow their government, yes? And when it is that your citizens don't trust you, then it creates all manners of challenges. I think that the office of the Prime Minister ought to be held in such high regard that if it is that the individual who holds that office finds his character, his integrity, people's perception of him being impaired, then the appropriate thing to do, I think, is to step down and preserve the office of the Prime Minister. Jamaica's international reputation right now is suffering severely, yes? And particularly, Kwame, the fact that this is happening on the eve of a general election, it is not going to get better.
Hold that thought, Germaine. We're going to our second break. You continue to watch us. You're watching The Conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation. Germaine, you were just wrapping up your point before we went to the break. You want to continue on that?
Yes, sorry, I got a little distracted. I forgot the point I was really making. Apologies.
So what we want to find out, though, is that the Prime Minister claims that he wasn't given a fair chance to respond to the allegations.
Yes.
So my question to you has to do with the whole idea of procedural fairness. And what is at stake is if these investigations are seen as one-sided, as was stated.
Well, we have a system of justice that speaks to every man having a right to his day in court and due process. And so what we have before us is a report, an extensive report, an elaborate report from the Integrity Commission that lays some fairly significant charges at the Prime Minister's feet. And the conclusion of this report is that, well, they don't have enough evidence to prove that the Prime Minister is in fact guilty of illicit enrichment. That's a summary of it. But the concerns are significant, alarming even, given that, given the significance of them. The Prime Minister must have his day to defend himself, right? And I don't think that the defense of the Prime Minister ought to be concluded within the court of public opinion, quite frankly. We have systems in this country. We have a judiciary that is structured to do that. And so I'm one of those public commentators who I'm prepared to wait. I'm prepared to wait until the conclusion of this matter is had through the courts before I give a definitive statement as to what my view is on the guilt or innocence of the Prime Minister. But while that process is ongoing, the Prime Minister must be given the opportunity to defend himself. Should he defend himself as Prime Minister, it is my view that it is best for him, and I want people to hear me clearly, for him to step aside in the best traditions of Westminster politics, in preserving the integrity of the office of the Prime Minister, to ensure that people can have confidence in it. You ought to step aside.
So essentially, what you're saying, what you have just said is that if the individual, Andrew Holness, is defending himself or seeking to defend himself, he must step out of the office of Prime Minister and then do so, but not do so in the office.
Precisely.
Because effectively what you have then is the head of state, well, not the head of state, but the chief legislator, he is questioning the integrity of one of his organizations.
Precisely, and that's another point too. The Integrity Commission is urging the Parliament to have the FID and the TAG do an investigation on some matters that are beyond their capacity to arrive at conclusions about.
But what both of you seem to have said, you and Clyde, when we had the last conversation on this matter, is that they were well within their rights and they had the capacity to access these because these organizations were seen as competent authorities. Precisely. They could have approached them during that process. So when they have waited until this end, at this particular point, then they're pretty much passing the buck. Are your
Well,
views?
Kwame,
Yes?
there's an interesting hypothesis, and I'm going to share it with my listeners. It's not a point of conclusion, just something
Yes.
for us to mull over. Why did the Integrity Commission not engage the services of the FID, TAJ, or any other competent authority, given the fact that their legislation permits them so to do? It may very well be that they know that these authorities ultimately report and are subservient to the Prime Minister. And so that creates an inherent conflict of interest. Because if it is that, given the secrecy that pervades over the operations of the Integrity Commission, within that context, it is not unthinkable
Yes.
that the Integrity Commission, could have perceived that, listen, if we go the route of getting the FID, ultimately, behind this veil of secrecy, the Prime Minister, for example, could have intervened in an inappropriate fashion and corrupted the investigation. So let's not go there. Let us submit the final report, the report. Let us have it in the public domain, and let the light of public scrutiny bar even the Prime Minister from intervening and corrupting the process. It's a fascinating theory. It's a theory that many people hold, but it's a theory that I don't know if it's true. Yes.
So tell me about the evolution, though, of the Integrity Commission. How can they evolve to the point where it remains strong and fair in terms of its ability to hold government officials accountable? And what kind of reforms do you think are needed to enhance transparency and public confidence and to restore public confidence?
I have not heard a very compelling argument, for example, for the retention of the gag order, the gag clause, rather.
Yes.
I haven't heard. I think it's a part of that which causes the functioning of the Integrity Commission to be significantly impaired. And they've said it themselves, and we're seeing evidence of it. The public angst surrounding what is happening with the Prime Minister's declarations, why hasn't it been certified, and the kind of in the darkness of information,
okay,
or the deficit of
there's
information.
Fear.
Yes,
and
there's
speculation.
Fear and speculation, which is bad.
So, because help us to understand. But
the Integrity Commission claims that they can't do anything about it because I want
you to help me to understand the gag order. Is it a case whereby they can't say, there is just literally a case whereby they can't say some things in public until they have arrived at the end of or a reasonable part in the investigations, correct?
No. The Integrity Commissions Act allows them to submit what are called special reports to the Parliament at various points during the investigation. And so that was what I was thinking. Within the context of there being a gag clause within the legislation, could they not have submitted periodic special reports and so forth? I don't know why they did, but sufficient to say they're standing behind the gag clause.
No, but there's a way. It seems as though, based on what you have said and based on what I've understood from what we have read, is that there's a way to go around that. You submit interim reports to supplement or to inform the public as well as the House of Parliament.
Yes, and that is why I think I'm wondering. I don't understand why it is that they never took that route. Sometimes you almost feel as though the Integrity Commission is a law unto themselves, totally oblivious to the concerns that exist within the public and the need as an entity owned by Jamaicans at large, quite frankly. They too ought to be accountable to us.
So,
but I don't know, even then, Kwame, I don't know that there is really accompanying arguments for the retention of the integrity, the gag clause, because even with this sort of arrangement that is available for them to submit interim reports, I still don't know why must we shield politicians from public scrutiny in that kind of way.
And I don't know that we should, though. I don't know that we should. So the last thing that we have the opportunity to say, though, is that in the last conversation that we had, you as well as Clyde, you spoke about giving them a certain level of autonomy, in the same way that the DPP and other such organizations have. Do you still hold that position?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Integrity Commission, being an important aspect of the integrity architecture in Jamaica, should be placed within the Constitution. Yes. Part of the concern now that many Jamaicans have, and I see legitimacy in the concern, is that, well, we're talking about now tinkering with the Integrity Commission Act and it's a prime minister who is propelling that thrust because he feels that he has been slighted or damaged by the Integrity Commission. What incentive does he then have to strengthen the Integrity Commission, assuming it needs strengthening? And so there's a view that says that the government, with its 49 seat margin in the parliament, could very well weaken it substantially. Yes, you hear Delroy Truck talking about illicit, what's it called?
Enrichment.
Enrichment ought not to be a basis, ought not to be a criminal action. Those kinds of things lead people to be very concerned.
We have both said it on a number of programs that it's important not only to be right, but you need to be seen as being right.
Precisely. So, perception is reality.
Yes, so Germaine, we want to say thanks for taking the time out to sit with us. And
you're welcome.
Regrettably, that's all we have for this episode of The Conversation. So we're going to ask that you continue. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today as we explored the ramifications of Prime Minister Andrew Holness's legislation, our legal consequences, our challenges against the Integrity Commission. As this case unfolds, its impact on governance and public trust in Jamaica remains to be seen. A special thanks again to Germaine and the team, the entire conversation team, for sharing and allowing this to happen. Please be sure to follow us on all our social media platforms at CeenTV. On behalf of my team again, I am Kwame Thomas. See you next time.